What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode. If you're using open source code in your projects and are not worried about the security of those projects or vulnerabilities in your open source go-to framework that might cause you massive headaches, then you haven't been paying attention. In this episode, we'll take a look at what the industry is doing to shore up the security of the open source community and what still needs to be done. Let's see what we can learn to protect ourselves and others from this story.
Drat these computers, they're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
You may have noticed that a lot of people are getting seriously cranky about open source software security lately. They have a reason. Our screw-ups have been making the news a lot lately. To name just a few, there was the ongoing Log4j vulnerability, the NPM bad code injection fiasco, and you haven't heard the last of the Linux poll kit security holes, since many embedded systems will never be patched. As Jim Zemlin, the Linux Foundation's executive director, said in the aftermath of the Heartbleed and Shell Shock security fiascos, in these cases the eyeballs weren't really looking. In 2021, for example, Indonesia had a bad record globally in the case of the BPJS health leaks. The LF, or Linux Foundation, the OpenSSF, the SPDX, and OpenChain have all been working on securing the software supply chain with software bills of materials and a standard for them. ISO standard 5962. If we're to keep junk out of our CI/CD pipelines, we've no choice but to adopt SBOMs, or Software Bills of Materials. Some key points to keep in mind about immediate threats, about things that are happening to try to mitigate those threats, and things that are really not helping the cause include the open source Kubernetes tool Argo CD as an immediate threat because it has a high severity path traversal flaw. I did an episode on this a few days ago. Now, open source itself isn't the security problem. Misusing it is. If you look at the investments into improving the security of open source, you can see that the Linux Foundation spent 20% more in 2021, highlighting their new LFX platform. Now, what's not helping the cause is the fact that apparently some JavaScript devs are deliberately screwing up their own popular NPM packages to make a point of some sort. I don't know what it is, but it's not helping the cause. Let's face it, does the project manager want it done on time, or does he or she want it to be secure? Yeah, you know what cybersecurity experts are going to say. We must invest in securing our programs and stop just giving security lip service. That means making security a real priority in our projects. It means learning about how to do the security, and it means paying open source developers and maintainers to secure their projects. Now, there's an urban legend that open source developers don't get paid. That's not true. They do, in many cases, get paid. It depends, what affiliation they have to different organizations, but many of them get paid, for example, from the Linux organization. Now, it's true that some important, indeed vital, projects do fall through the cracks, but the Linux Foundation has been addressing pay for these developers. For example, David A. Wheeler, the Linux Foundation's director of open source supply chain security, said the Linux Foundation and its related foundations and projects are directly funding people to do security work, and the Linux Foundation is spending more money than ever before on security. We still don't pay enough for security, whether you're a distinguished engineer closing in on a 7-figure compensation package or still wet behind the ears noob programmer. Unless the word security is in your title, you probably aren't writing secure code. Fast code? Yes. Good code? You bet. Secure code? Not so much. If that's what they want, we need to tell them you can get that, but you'll need to pay for it from an open source company. For example, if we want guarantees with your Linux, you must talk to Canonical, Red Hat, or SUSE. In addition, now I've known many open source programmers myself, and they've often truly been great coders and brilliant minds, but what they're not are, I'll say, security experts. They need help, education, and cold hard cash encouragement to help them fundamentally improve open source security. This won't happen overnight. It won't happen over the next year, but we are on our way to making these kinds of fundamental security improvements. We just need to buckle down and pay the money needed to make this happen sooner rather than later. So, what can we learn? Well, programmers are far too often looked at as some universal commodity, exchangeable with any other programmer. Oh, you're a React developer? Great. Can you reset my email password? Or, you know Golang? Wow, that's impressive. Hey, I have a WordPress website I need a plugin developed for. Oh, and make it secure, okay? Software development has many different facets, methods, programming languages, processes that a developer or software engineer or programmer or whatever you want to call yourself, whatever they can use. But the bottom line in any project is their work is directly linked to rules set by somebody else. And that other person doesn't necessarily have the technical savvy to gauge the time, the budget, or skills needed to perform the task, let alone make sure the end result is secure. Does a PM know what unit tests need to be implemented for feature A versus feature B, thereby understand the reason why feature A requires more time than feature B, even though the end result gives the client the same functionality? Or why a specific change in the error reporting for a specific login page can open up that form to SQL injection or brute force attacks? Of course not. They only know that the customer says, it doesn't tell me which information I entered in wrong, my username or my password. How many developers also do not have the experience to accurately determine these issues? Unfortunately, a lot. So like the author of this article points out, education is key. But not just the developers. If a PM is the one talking to the client or the company business lead in your company about Project A, and they have no idea about the topics, then they might say, oh yeah, sure, boss, we can have it done in a week. That's what you want. Yeah, sure. Not only can the code for that project be shoddy, but it can be the reason why in 2 months your company gets hacked. So yes, education about security is key, but for the entire team. Now, I don't exactly know how much the Linux Foundation pays out to open source coders to fix packages, but considering the role that open source currently plays in the global market, it is extremely important that more resources are put towards improving the open source supply chain, as well as the code standards, code testing, release standards, and bug fixing timelines to ensure that the world can still run securely on these open source tools. With that, I say thanks again for watching this episode. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.